My parents said they were staying home for the summer. I believed them until I got a notification. $960 from my backup account. Flights to McKenes, luxury suites, private driver, all in my name. Then my brother sent a text meant for my mom. He never reads his statements. Don't worry, I replied. Read this. I froze the account. Flagged fraud. By 6 a.m., they were banging furiously on my door. I opened it and saw it wasn't just theft. It was betrayal, and not the kind you come back from. They were my parents. The same people who told me they couldn't afford a weekend picnic with. Family, who lectured me last month about wasting money on takeout. Who shook their heads when I suggested a short getaway together, saying, "This summer we're staying in. It's just too much." And I believed them. I actually believed them. But then came the notification. 3:08 a.m., my phone buzzed on my nightstand. I was barely awake, but something about the number caught my eye. 99 withdrawn from your reserve fund. My heart didn't even beat right. I sat up, opened the banking app, and just stared. Every charge was there. First-class flights to McKenes, a private luxury suite at a resort with its own damn infinity pool. Personal driver, designer shopping, restaurant reservations that cost more than my monthly rent. Every single thing booked using my emergency account, the account they weren't even supposed to touch without asking. I scrolled further. Boutique charges, private tour packages, beachfront spa treatments, all in my name. And that's when the second betrayal hit. A text from my brother sent by accident. He never reads his statements. Don't worry. That's when it all clicked. They thought I'd never notice. They thought I'd be too stupid, too trusting to check. That I'd just assume the balance dropped because of some technicality or bank fee. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was premeditated. They counted on my silence. My loyalty, my blindness, they didn't get it. I replied one thing, read this. Then I acted fast, froze the account, flagged every charge as fraud, got a bank rep on the line, reversed every booking, and shut down their access to everything. The refund was on its way, and the dream trip canceled. They'd land in Greece and have nowhere to go. No car, no hotel, no luxury suite, not even a ride from the airport. And I didn't sleep, just sat in the living room in the dark, watching the minutes pass until the fallout hit. At 6:02 a.m., I heard something sharp crack outside, something heavy. I ran to the window and saw the windshield of my car completely shattered. A landscaping rock sat right in the center of it, embedded like a meteor. My dad was standing there, fists clenched, pacing. My mom was behind him, waving her arms. My sister stood at the edge of the driveway, grinning like it was some schoolyard drama she was enjoying. I opened the front door. My father didn't even wait. You selfish little brat. After everything we've done for you, that money was ours. You gave us access. If you didn't want us to use it, you should have said so. My mom was yelling over him. You embarrassed us. We told everyone about this trip. Do you know how humiliating it is? You're ungrateful. And from the side, my sister yelled, yes, finally someone tells her. I didn't say a word, just looked at my car, then back at them. Come in, I said. You want to talk? Let's talk. They marched in, still shouting. I walked to the hallway, closed the bedroom door behind me, and called the police. Gave them the address, told them there was property damage, possible assault, and that I had it all on video from the front cam. The officer said they'd be there in under 10 minutes. So I stalled, let my parents yell. Let them circle the same arguments over and over. Let my dad threaten to cut me off from the family. Let my mom cry. Let my sister mock me from the corner like a little hyena. Then came the knock, the second one. The police stepped in and I just pointed at the door. The rock's still on the car and there's video. I want to file a report. They didn't say a word after that, not until the officer led my dad out and told him he'd need to come down to the station. And even then, my mom just stood there frozen. I filed the report, demanded full compensation for the windshield, and added a note for emotional distress too. The refund came through that afternoon, but the real payback was just beginning. After the cops took my dad, the silence in the house was something else. My mom sat stiff on the edge of the couch like she still hadn't processed what had just happened. My sister paced the hallway, arms folded, glancing between the door and me like she couldn't decide who to be mad at. No one said a word for almost 20 minutes. Then my mom's phone rang. I heard her in the kitchen trying to sound calm, but her voice kept cracking. Yes, they took him. Maya called the police. I don't know what she told them. No, it's not what. It looks like I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I left, drove straight to the station, sat down with the officer, filed a complete statement, handed over the doorbell cam footage, showing my dad throwing the rocks I had straighted through the windshield. Told them everything, the financial, theft, the verbal threats, the vandalism. I didn't dramatize it, just laid it out clean. No emotion, no yelling. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, not just for the damage, but for what it meant. That windshield was the last straw. I got a call later that afternoon. My dad had agreed to settle. Transferred the money directly. Reimbursement for the damage, plus another $1,000 for emotional distress. His words, not mine. Maybe he thought that would smooth things over. It didn't. When I got home, my mom and sister were still there. My mom didn't look at me. My sister gave me this dirty look like I was the one who betrayed them. I didn't say a word. I went straight to my room and locked the door. I didn't sleep that night. I pulled up every financial record I had tied to them. Bills, tuition payments, subscriptions, login. I cut every single one. By noon the next day, I called the university, told them I would no longer be responsible for my sister's education costs, that my financial support ends immediately, and they need to sort it out with someone else. They said they'd inform her within the next 24 hours. I let them do it. 3 hours later, she was screaming outside my door. I didn't answer. I heard her throwing something at the wall, probably one of her books. Then she stormed out. I watched her from the upstairs window, pacing in the driveway while calling someone, probably my mom. 2 days after that, I stopped the auto payments for my mom's arthritis medication. I've been quietly covering the cost every month because her insurance barely touched it. She never asked me to. I just did it back when I thought helping her meant something. I called the clinic, told them to switch billing back to the patient. I removed my card from everything. No warning, no explanations. Let them feel it. This wasn't about getting even. It was about cutting them off clean. They thought they could use me like an ATM, then destroy my stuff and act like I was the one who crossed the line, like I was supposed to let it go. Just take it. No, the betrayal was too deep for that. This wasn't about a vacation. It was about the fact that they knew what that money was for. My health, my future, my backup in case things got worse, and they didn't care. They didn't even hesitate. And when I called them out, their first instinct was to smash my car and scream at me in my own home. They thought I'd roll over, that I'd feel guilty, that I'd still pay for everything after what they did. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. And the best part, this was only the beginning. They never apologized, not once. Not for draining my emergency savings. Not for hurling a rock through my windshield. Not even for screaming at me in my own living room like I was a stranger who had broken into their lives. If anything, they doubled down. Every time I checked my phone, I half expected a message, some attempt to fix things, or even just a pathetic excuse. But nothing came. No calls, no texts. My mom went silent. My dad vanished like he didn't exist. My sister was the only one still making noise, passive-aggressive posts on Instagram. Family is blood, but not everyone deserves yours. Pictures with captions like cutting off dead weight. She didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. I got the message. Then a letter arrived, a real one in an envelope. No return address, just my name printed in type block letters. Inside was a type 2 page. Letter signed by both my parents. Formal, cold. They used words like irreparable damage and family shame. Said I had publicly humiliated them, that my actions were vindictive, ungrateful, and that I was morally compromised. The final line hit harder than the rest. From this moment forward, we no longer consider you our daughter. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just folded the letter, placed it in the drawer where I keep my medical paperwork, and closed it slowly. They knew I was sick. They knew what I was saving that money for. My diagnosis wasn't new. I'd been living with a chronic autoimmune condition for 2 years, managing it day by day. Flare-ups, hospital visits, expensive meds, weeks where I could. Barely work. I told them everything, let them see it all. They were there when I had to quit my last job. They helped me fill out the paperwork for disability aid. They knew what that fund was for, and they still drained it for a luxury vacation. They didn't just steal from me. They stole my safety net, my peace of mind. And then when I fought back, they threw me out like trash. A few days after the letter, my dad left a voicemail. He said he wanted to talk like adults. He didn't say sorry. He said maybe he shouldn't have gone that far with the rock, but that I had pushed him. Then he said something that made my skin crawl. You've made your point. Now be a woman and make things right with the family. Like I was the one who broke it, so I did exactly what he asked. I made things right my way. First, I called the storage unit company. They'd been keeping antique furniture there. Old family. Heirlooms, paintings my mom claimed were worth something. Some vintage stuff they said they'd sell once the market bounced back. They'd fallen behind on payments a few months ago, and I'd stepped in like an idiot to cover the overdue fees. I was still on the lease, so I canceled the contract. No extension, no heads up. I told the manager to send the standard 2 pickup notice. Anything left after that would be auctioned. I didn't even tell my parents. Let the email surprise them. Then I tackled the kitchen loan. 3 years ago, they took out a loan for a massive kitchen renovation. Granted everything. Double oven, custom cabinets. It was stupidly expensive, and the bank wouldn't approve them without a guarantor. I signed it back then because we're family. That phrase feels like poison now. But I called the bank, sent over all the paperwork, told them about the vandalism, the letter, the stolen funds. After a week of back and forth, they removed me from the loan. They'd have to refinance or cover the full remaining balance. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. And it felt good, not petty, clean, because what they did wasn't just a betrayal. It was a declaration. They drew the line, they crossed it, and they made sure I knew exactly where I stood in their world. And still, after everything, I couldn't shut off that one part of me that hoped they'd reach out, that they'd call and say, we messed up, that they'd want to fix things. But the truth kept cutting through that noise. They disowned me over a vacation. They picked luxury over loyalty. And now I was giving them exactly what they wanted. No more daughter. 2 weeks of silence. That's how long it took for them to go from outrage to desperation. At first, I figured they were licking their wounds. Maybe they finally realized the damage they'd done and were embarrassed. Or maybe they were still hoping I'd crack and come crawling back. Either way, the quiet was unnerving. I kept expecting something dramatic. Another voicemail, some guilt trip text from my mom, my sister showing up to throw a fit. But there was nothing until I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Maya, this is Randall Porter. I'm an attorney representing your parents. They've asked me to reach out regarding some shared financial matters. I hung up before he could finish. 5 minutes later, a follow-up voicemail arrived. Same guy now saying words like mediation, property concerns, and cooperative resolution. Apparently, they wanted to discuss a few shared financial arrangements. Before things became complicated, they already broke into my account, stole 10 grand, destroyed my car, disowned me, and now they were scared things were getting complicated. The next day, my sister showed up. She used an old spare key I forgot to deactivate, like she still had a place in my life. No knock, just walked in like it was still her house. I found her in the kitchen sipping from a mug like it was some family reunion. She said Mom hadn't been eating, that Dad was talking about selling the house, that he was even thinking about pulling money from his retirement. She said, "You started something none of us can stop." I told her the key wouldn't work next time. She said fine. But before she left, she pulled an envelope from her purse and slid it across the counter. Inside was a will, handwritten, not official, just something my dad scribbled down on a piece of yellow legal paper. I almost didn't look at it, but one sentence caught my eye. In the event of my death, all assets will be divided equally between Sarah and Melinda. Nothing about me, not even a mention. It was like I'd never existed. She watched me as I read it. No emotion, just waiting for me to say something. "You're not even surprised, are you?" She said. I didn't answer. I just folded the will, slipped it back into the envelope, and tossed it on the table. She was halfway out the door when she turned around. "By the way," she said, "Mom had one of her prescriptions blocked at the pharmacy. They said the card declined." She broke down in front of the counter. I had to leave empty-handed. I didn't flinch. I just said she's the one who made that choice. After she left, I sat there for a while, not angry, not even sad, just hollow. That will didn't sting the way it should have. If anything, it confirmed what I already knew. They were never planning on seeing me as part of the family again. Not even in death. Later that night, I opened up one of the old financial dashboards I'd forgotten about. It was still linked to a checking account I used during the pandemic when I was managing their bills. The account had maybe $600 in it when I stopped using it, but someone had been using it. Small withdrawals spread out over weeks. $32 here. $19 there. Nothing big until I saw it. Multiple transactions to a gambling site, then more and more, each one under my dad's name. I kept scrolling. Hundreds of dollars. It didn't stop. This wasn't just about McKenis. The vacation was a smoke screen. They weren't just careless. They were sinking, drowning in their own mess, and too arrogant to admit it. They needed the trip not because they deserved a break, but because they were spiraling and wanted one last escape on my dime. I'd always wondered how they'd gone from proud, stubborn people to selfish, impulsive liars, but now I saw it clearly. They weren't just trying to hurt me, they were trying to survive. And they thought if they could twist the story hard enough, make me the villain, I'd step back in and save them. But I wasn't that woman anymore, and they still didn't know what was coming. By the end of the month, they were unraveling in real time. I didn't have to guess. It started showing up in small ways. Bank alerts, odd emails, calls from creditors I hadn't heard from in years. Somehow they'd gotten sloppy and started using old accounts that still had traces of my information tied to them. My name popped up as a backup contact on a credit card I never even knew existed. Another listed me as an authorized user from back when I helped them boost their credit after the 2008 crash. They were trying to use every connection they could, probably hoping I wouldn't notice, but I did. I cleaned it all out, called every bank, every lender, removed my name, flagged any attempts. Every time I shut a door, I imagined them behind it, realizing it was locked now permanently. But the real crack came a week later. I got a call from an old friend of the family, Mr. Blake. He owned a body shop where my dad used to get our cars fixed. He wasn't calling for small talk. "Mia," he said, "your father stopped by here last night. He was drunk, said some things I didn't really understand, but it sounded bad. He kept saying you destroyed everything. Then he broke a mirror in the office and left without paying." He paused. "I just thought you should know he's not doing well." I thanked him and hung up. So the house of cards was collapsing. I didn't know how deep the debts went, but it didn't matter. I wasn't paying a cent. They had chosen this. They had written me off publicly on paper. Still, a part of me wanted to know how far they'd fall. Not out of cruelty, but because if I was going to walk away for good, I needed to know I wasn't. Walking away too early. The next surprise came from the hospital billing department. I had listed myself years ago as an emergency contact for my mom, never updated it. They called to confirm that her insurance had lapsed and she hadn't made payments on her treatments. Apparently, she'd been skipping appointments for weeks. When I asked if she was okay, they said they weren't authorized to disclose anything else. I didn't call her. I didn't send money. She knew how to reach me. She just didn't want to. Then came the final hit, a certified letter. Not from their lawyer this time, directly from my parents. Inside was one line written in permanent marker across a folded sheet of blank paper. "You were a mistake." No signature, no return address, just those 4 words. I didn't cry. I laughed quietly, bitterly, because it was almost funny in a twisted way. How much effort they put into pretending I'd never been part of them. Like they could write me out of history with a sentence. I put the letter next to the first one in the same drawer with the will and the pharmacy receipts. My private little archive of what betrayal looks like when it comes in your own handwriting. That night, I opened a new document on my computer, titled it Final Accounts. Inside, I listed every payment, every loan, every favor, every sacrifice I made for them over the past decade. It was longer than I expected. And at the bottom, I wrote, "No repayment needed. Just never speak to me again." Because they were right about one thing. I wasn't their daughter anymore. Life got quiet. Not peaceful, not calm, just still. Like a room that had been emptied after a storm. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive. Letters, no more drama. The people who used to orbit my life like permanent fixtures had disappeared. And for the first few days, that silence rang louder than their shouting ever had. I knew they weren't coming back. Not in the way people mean when they say that. I knew because they meant every word they wrote in that final letter. Because if you can say you were a mistake and mail it like a legal document, there's nothing left worth saving. So I started dismantling the last pieces of them from my life. I scrubbed my name off every joint file, every backup contact, every emergency reference. I switched phone numbers, opened new accounts, closed out old subscriptions tied to the house, even canceled my dental coverage because it was still listed under my dad's old plan from years ago. I wanted by nothing that could link me back to them. No paper trail, no forgotten connections. It wasn't anger anymore. It was the clarity. And it came just in time because not long after I started getting messages through back channels, old. Family, friends, neighbors, people I hadn't heard from in years. They weren't checking on me. They were passing on gossip. Apparently, my parents sold the house. Not just sold it, dumped it below market fast, probably to avoid foreclosure. No moving truck, no formal goodbye. They took what they could carry and disappeared. One woman said she saw my mom leaving with a suitcase crying. Another said she'd heard my dad screaming at someone on the phone in the middle of the night demanding money. No one knew where they went, not even my sister, who had apparently moved in with some guy 2 towns over. I didn't ask for the details, I didn't care, and then came the photo. A neighbor I barely knew anymore sent me a picture, blurry, taken from a distance. My parents sitting outside a rundown motel near the edge of the city. My dad hunched over, looking at the ground, my mom staring at nothing. 2 plastic grocery bags on the sidewalk beside them. No car, no home, just a stretch of concrete and whatever pride they had left. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because I wanted to help, because I wanted to feel something. But all I felt was tired. I deleted the photo, blocked the number, got up, made coffee, sat by the window, and thought about how strange it is to outgrow the people who raised you. Not because you're better than them, but because then they never grew at all. They stayed the same, entitled, arrogant, cruel. Even when they were weak, I remembered every moment I could have walked away sooner. Every red flag. Every time they guilt-tripped me into paying their bills, taking their calls, showing up for holidays that felt more like negotiations than gatherings. Every time they acted like my help was their right, not my choice. And I thought about that. Final letter, you were a mistake. I used to think if I did enough, gave enough, endured enough, they'd finally say the opposite, that they were proud, that I mattered. But the truth is, some people only love you when you're useful. And once you stop being useful, they show you what they really are. So I gave myself what they never did, closure. I printed out a final document just for myself. I titled it Severance. Inside, I listed every loan, every payment, every sacrifice, every broken promise. Then I wrote the final line. You were not a mistake. You were the last lesson. I haven't heard from them since. But sometimes when the pain in my joints creeps in and reminds me why I built that reserve fund in the first place, I open that drawer where the letters are still folded neatly, untouched, and I remind myself I didn't lose my family. I finally saw them for who they were, and I walked away while I still could. Sometimes on nights when sleep doesn't come easy, I catch myself thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't checked that bank notification. If I just kept trusting them, letting them drain me dry while smiling to my face, maybe they would have gone again next summer, maybe to Dubai, maybe somewhere even more ridiculous, and I'd still be footing the bill like a fool. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't start with 10 grand and a luxury suite. It starts smaller, with silence, with little lies, with being told you're selfish when you say no. And once you let that slide enough times, they start to believe the lie too that you owe them always. Oh, never again. Sometimes on nights when sleep doesn't come easy, I catch myself thinking about what might have happened if I hadn't checked that bank notification. If I had just kept trusting them, letting them drain me dry while smiling to my face. Maybe they would have gone again next summer, maybe to Dubai, maybe somewhere even more ridiculous, and I'd still be footing the bill like a fool. But the truth is, betrayal doesn't start with 10 grand and a luxury suite. It starts smaller with silence, with little lies, with being told you're selfish when you say no, with guilt trips that sound like love, with being taught that your yes is the only thing keeping peace. It starts when your help becomes their expectation, and once you let that slide enough times, they start to believe the lie too, that you owe them, that your life is just a resource for theirs, that your boundary is their inconvenience. Never again. Not for anyone, not for family, not for guilt. I thought drawing the line would hurt more, but it didn't. The real pain was realizing how long I'd ignored it, how many years I spent convincing myself this is just how they are, how I thought being strong meant enduring them instead of walking away, But strength is sometimes the door you close and never open again. So now, when the house is quiet and the storm has passed, I sit by the window with my tea and I remind myself this silence, this stillness, it's not emptiness, it's orange freedom. The cost was high, but the lesson priceless. And I don't regret